Welcome to Active Web Group's webinar on Internet Marketing 101. This is Ria Facina, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to spend about 25 to 30 minutes reviewing Internet or digital marketing and how it can help your business. We're going to go through the points pretty quickly so that those of you who only have those 25 minutes can be on your way, but those of you who have a little bit more time can stick around for the end when we have our question and answer session. If you have any questions during the presentation, don't hesitate to enter your question as you think of it into the chat window on the left-hand side of your screen. I will answer questions at the end of the presentation during a question and answer period. We're going to go over some pretty complex concepts, so to make it easier to understand, we've created a fake company for example purposes. We'll go over their business and how it translates to digital marketing, then review the steps for your own business. Let me introduce you to Old Fashioned Art, a brick-and-mortar mom-and-pop shop that has been in business for the past 12 years in Pleasantville. Their business sells traditional art supplies such as charcoal, paint, and canvas to artists, students, teachers, and hobbyists. It offers free and paid workshops to customers as well as paid individual lessons. The store also regularly bids on contracts for institutions. Although the contracts are a good source of income, the primary source of revenue is earned off of store patrons. Old Fashioned Art has just launched their first website in January 2015. With this new phase of development, the owner has outlined goals that he wants to meet to keep growth consistent. The site's been live now for a few months and performance is becoming stale, so he sought the help of a digital marketing agency to get the needle moving. Specifically, he wants to achieve a 15% growth of revenue over the previous fiscal year from the store and the website combined, and he wants to move older, expiring products out of the store to make room for fresher inventory. These identified goals are key performance indicators, or KPIs. KPIs are metrics that are used to evaluate factors that are crucial to the success of an organization or website. Without them, there would be no way to tell if one is thriving, breaking even, or failing. As such, the first thing we need to do is outline the KPIs. In Old Fashioned Art's description, I actually listed all of their KPIs. Did you catch them? There were 3. 15% increase of revenue, sell older products to make room for fresher merchandise, and the less obvious KPI is to fill workshops with paid attendees. Kudos if you recognized it. Typically, in a brick and mortar, these KPIs would be carried out through promoted sales that have items strategically positioned in print ads in the penny savers or at a POS, or even flyers in the Sunday paper, such as these. But my job as an internet marketer is to make sure that these goals are achieved through the new website, not just in its physical location. But how do these types of strategies apply to a website? In the digital world, everything is measurable. Every click, scroll, pause, and page change a user makes can be tracked by a variety of different means and contributes to a KPI. When a user completes a desired action on a site, we call it a conversion. And while all conversions are important, some are more important than others. To help separate the conversion types, we split them into macro and micro conversions. Macro conversions refer to how the website causes the business to earn revenue. These are the easier to identify, as with an e-commerce site, the macro conversion will be final sales, checkouts, or transactions, which directly translates to revenue and cost per conversion. If the site is a lead generation site, the macro conversions are a verified lead. Most often, this takes the form of a phone call or a form submission. Micro-conversions are interactions that users take with a site before converting, such as downloading a brochure or signing up for an email newsletter. Micro-conversions can be the most difficult part of a conversion funnel to identify. Macro-conversions are built on the completion of micro-conversions, and KPIs are made up of macro-conversions. Keep in mind that micro-conversions are called this for a reason. Sometimes it can take hundreds, if not thousands, of micro-conversions to equal macro-conversions. As with anything else in marketing, it's a numbers game. Now that we know how KPIs are built for a website, let's see if we can't be a little bit clearer about what Old Fashioned Art is looking to accomplish with their site. The KPIs they listed were to earn a 15% increase of revenue, sell older products to make room for fresher merchandise, fill classes and workshops with paid attendees. By stating that they want to see an increase of revenue, what they're really saying is that they want to see an increase of the site performance metric revenue. E-commerce carts and Google Analytics are set up to track this information out of the box, but just make sure you turn it on. So really the macro conversion here is just revenue. The second KPI is filling classes and workshops. Because the store owner offers both free and paid classes, we can't automatically assume that this macro conversion can be satisfied with any registration request. Based off of the first KPI of increased revenue, it's more probable that the client is looking for more people to attend the paid workshops. So what we're looking for here are confirmed attendees or paid class admittance. The final KPI of selling older products is a bit trickier to work out. The products that the business is looking to move would be different every month, if not every week or even day, depending on the business plan. Typically, a store owner would accomplish this with promos. On a website, it works the same way, so this macro conversion would translate to promo item sales. And so long as we have an updated circular or list from the client, we'll be able to track those no problem. But remember that macro conversions are composed of micro conversions. So what constitutes a micro conversion for these KPIs on a website? Let's take a look. As with any business, on a website, revenue is made up by two metrics: transactions and average order value. Again, standard on e-commerce tracking platforms. So in order to make the revenue increase, the website will need to do one of two things: generate more transactions at the same average order value, or generate the same amount of transactions that have a higher average order value. In order to increase the average order value, we'll need to sell either more items per order, or we'd have to sell higher ticket items more often. Therefore, the micro conversions will be on transaction completion and adding a new transaction total to the average order value. Selling older products is pretty straightforward too. If we want to sell something in a store, we need to make it more visible, right? Same thing goes for a website. The best way to tell if something on the internet, a video, a post, or a page has been seen is by looking at the views it gets. So one micro conversion here would be the product page sessions. Going back to the visibility thing, a second micro conversion would be how many clicks that any promo banners or sale links on the website receive. Filling classes and workshops with paid attendees is a little bit more complicated on a website, but not by much. See, in a store, it's pretty easy for someone to inquire about a topic. They call or they ask a sales rep in person who only records a completed sale. On a website, it's different because, say it with me, websites track everything, which means that a verified confirmation and just a random question will register the same way. It really comes back to how the site is set up to handle registration for classes. It can be handled as a paid transaction, which would be easy to track, or it could be handled as a form request, an email request, or even a phone call. All of these points can be tracked, but again, it's hard to determine what's real and what's bogus just by website tracking alone. Because of the multiple conversion paths, we're going to use the metric of verified registrations. If you're tracking your own business, you go straight to the POS and get the numbers from there. If you're managing marketing for another company, then you can take the numbers recorded in analytics back to the owner and confirm their validity. Now that we have identified our micro-conversions, we want to track them in our analytics service. The most popular service is Google Analytics because it is both comprehensive and free. In order to set up analytics on your website, you simply register for a Google account, log into Google Analytics, and then add a snippet of code to your website. The next step is that we set up goals to register the micro-conversions we just outlined so that progress can be monitored over the next several months. These are all things that old-fashioned art did when the site was built, but performance has leveled off, and from their original goals, what can we do now? How do they get their website performance to the next level? The answer is deceptively simple. know the audience. One of the best ways to know your audience on the web is to implement tracking software services. And if you have analytics implemented with the correct trackings, like e-commerce, then you're halfway there. You'll have all of the pages users visited, in what order, and how many have converted. If you wanted to, you could even go a step further and install additional tracking services. For instance, Heatmap Analysis and Video Analysis. Heatmap Analysis takes user clicks on a site and represents it as a bunch of dots over a grayed out version of a landing page, like you can see here. This helps you to identify whether or not users are using the page's CTAs and how far down the page they scroll. Video analysis trackers will actually create create and record a user's journey through a website and play it back for you. This type of video allows you to get a better idea of how the site is being utilized and stumbling blocks your users may encounter. But neither of these types of tracking will help you get into your customer's head and understand purchasing decisions. How else are you supposed to get to know your audience? If you've been in the business for a few years, like old-fashioned art, you already know a bit about your customers and seasonal trends. In our clients, or in our example clients, we're lucky enough that they've been tracking customer trends for the past year or so. We can take these purchases and turn them into actionable data that we can use to improve our sales. This is called segmenting. Segmenting your customers or users is separating like users into groups. On a website, there are two types of segmenting: audience segmenting and traffic segmenting. Like a KPI, segments vary between businesses and can be used to monitor and separate minutiae of website performance. If your website and business are both new, then you're mostly going to be relying on your analytics software to get segment information. The good thing is that there are a lot of pre-populated segments to choose from, but that's also sort of the problem. There are areas to overview, landing pages, and channels, and well, there's a lot of information and it can be a bit overwhelming in the beginning. To try and make a bit more sense of the analytics categories, let's first get a better idea of how users will access the website and review audience segmenting first. We already know old-fashioned art has 5 types of clients or 5 segments: institutions, artists, teachers, hobbyists, and students. Remember how we broke out the conversions into macro and micro conversions? Segments can also be broken out or down to smaller subsets of users, which allows for hyper-targeting audience, which refers to the ability to deliver advertising content to specific internet-based segments in a network. This is incredibly powerful for online business and is a must for any successful website. Let's institutions. Different types of institutions that could use art supplies are colleges, university departments, high schools, elementary schools, hospitals, and even convalescent homes. Each of these institution types would have different requirements or groups of products that they would purchase. For example, colleges may only purchase photography chemicals, wooden models, and easels, whereas elementary schools would be purchasing supplies like crayons and brushes that were non-toxic and in bulk to boot. Because they're interested in 2 completely different sets of products, one general promotion may not be specific enough for both segments to use, cutting your target audience in half. This is only one example of segmenting. Another would be to group customers into groups who buy high-quality products, another who buy mid-grade products, and another who buy low-grade products. There are an infinite number of ways to categorize products on a site, so be sure to group your users into categories that make the most sense for your business. Once you have your main audience segments figured out, you could even go so far as to create user personas to help create campaign parameters. Personas are fictional characters created to represent the different user types that might use a site, brand, or in a similar way. Represent a specific segment and help to get into a user's frame of mind. Some marketers go as far as making portraits and profiles similar to those found on Facebook. It's time-consuming, but taking the time to create personas for your segments will help immensely down the pike when trying to hash out campaign ideas. I'm not sure if you can read this slide very well, but here it shows, what the persona's worldview is, something that you may overhear when they are talking to a colleague, questions that he may have, also about what the client or what the persona is looking for, what their motivation is for buying or converting, and also what their demotivation is. It even goes so far as to show what kind of pets they may own, what kind of car they may drive, and even what type of music they listen to. Once the segments have been created, they should be separated out and reviewed for performance, type of products purchased, and money spent. Reviewing this information side by side will give you valuable information on how your customers shop, think, and why they take the actions they do. Okay, so now we know who we have to reach, but how do we do it? This is where site analytics come in. Those predefined traffic segments that I mentioned a few minutes ago that were so confusing, now we'll be able to attribute those actions to the audience segments and hopefully make more sense of it. If analytics has been running for a few months, then we'll be able to see which mediums users have already been using to reach the site. Traffic mediums are the main ways that users reach a site. They are direct, organic, email, social, referral, and CPC, or cost per click. You can find these under Acquisition, All Traffic Channels, and Analytics. The most likely types of traffic to visit a new site are direct, organic, and social, though you may see any mix of the above. Let's review what each of these mediums bring to the table regarding client outreach. Direct users don't really offer an outreach opportunity per se, so I'm going to skip over that medium for now. Email is the very first avenue that a website should track. This is because it allows you to reach out to your existing audience directly. You can also gauge how promotions, offers, products, or services affect your audience quicker than monitoring through other means because it's a direct connection. Results from email campaigns begin pouring in as soon as you hit the send button, and you can continue to see results trickle in up to a year later. This medium is This medium is applicable to most, if not all, types of users. Social platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and LinkedIn allow for both general advertisement as well as a direct connection with existing customers. And not only can you have a direct connection, you can have actual conversations with them to determine whether or not they find the products and information you're offering useful. Organic traffic, or search engine optimization, is a general advertisement channel that can attract new customers to your site. It's good to let users know exactly what your product or service is about. Users that enter a site via this medium may tend to have a higher bounce rate if verticals aren't targeted well. So it's better to undertake this after you know which of the verticals are going to be the most profitable for your company. CPC ads are another medium that can convert well, but that will likely have a higher bounce rate associated at the beginning of a campaign. It works well to bring in new users to a site, but it can be costly depending on the vertical you're going after. Again, this vertical is best used once you identify the exact products or services that are going to be of interest to your target audience. Referral traffic is actually people who come to your site from another site. This is usually because there is a link to your site on the original one, but it can also be that a user just typed your URL over the old one. This type of traffic doesn't usually show up until a site is older and has gained some reputation with users in communities. If you find that you're getting a lot of attention from certain websites, feel free to extend thanks and see if there's any way that you can put something mutually beneficial together for both sites. You could reach out to site owners in hopes that they'll put a link back to your site on theirs, but that's actually a link building strategy and a completely different conversation. We can now use these mediums to reach our segmented audience in campaigns. A campaign is defined as a series of advertisement messages that share a single theme and goal. We create content for the message, and that content is then distributed across traffic mediums, just like traditional ad campaigns. Just instead of using TV or radio ads, we're using infographics and tweets. Remember those audience segments we created? We'll create multiple versions of an ad and tweak it so that it's aimed specifically at one audience segment. Tweaking generally means adjusting an image or phrasing to suit user preferences. Campaigns run for a predetermined length of time or a set series of posts to gauge audience perceptions and reactions to messaging. This lets us see if the content of the ad was a fluke or the campaign itself was flawed. For example, we can see how FedEx targeted both antiques dealers and parents and families just with two slightly different ads. And when I say slightly, I mean that all that they did was change the object in the middle of the box, and they changed the hands that are holding the object. So in the top one, it looks like they're talking about two middle-aged people. And then in the bottom, it looks like, an older person and then a younger person grasping the toy at the bottom. For old-fashioned art, let's say we want to run a campaign to promote some pastels that have been sitting around in the store for too long. We know that this is something that 4 out of 5 of our audience segments can use, so we'll want to incorporate those perspectives into our campaigns. When we review analytics, we find that the pastel product page's top hits come from referred traffic and social media, specifically from a college website's class supply page and from Facebook. These sources are indicative of the student and hobbyist segments, so we should definitely create 2 separate ads targeting each of them, as well as a general ad for everyone else on the site. And this would be the time to refer to those personas that you created. I'll tell you now that campaigns are allowed to split or A/B testing. You will have to do a bunch of campaigns to find what resonates with your existing and prospective audiences, especially at the beginning. It will be challenging but rewarding once you find the style, tone, and voice that hits your audience. One of the most important things to remember when setting up campaigns is to make sure that they are cross-platform or used on more than one medium at a time. These are called conversion paths. Just like a new customer who comes into your store may tell you that they heard about the store first on the radio, then saw an ad in the paper, and finally decided to come in and check out your wares, channels can cross online too. In Google Analytics, this is called a multi-channel function. We can view it under Acquisition Multi-Channel Functions. This is one of the most complicated areas of digital analytics, so I'll do my best to explain it. Most of the time, users don't convert on their first visit to a site. In this example, you see that the top conversion path shows that users came to the site via direct traffic twice before converting, and then the second is first by search engine traffic, and then the second visit is by direct traffic. So be sure to offer promotions on multiple mediums so that all users have access to whatever you're setting in motion, just like you would cross-promote on TV and radio in traditional media. Also, if you notice that one of the traffic mediums is taking up the top slots like organic does in our example, make sure to definitely launch promos to those mediums, otherwise you'll miss out on some great conversions. Once you've done all of this footwork, you just need to launch your campaigns and let the results roll in. From there, you'll create new campaigns based off of the results of the old ones and so on and so forth. Talk about a lot to digest. Let's review the steps we took to define old-fashioned art's KPIs and how to measure their success. First, we established KPIs. Then we found correlating macro conversions for the KPIs, and we broke out the micro conversions from the macro conversions. After that, we segmented our users, and if we had time, we'll also create some personas for those segments, so it's easier to target them later on. After that, we determined which mediums would be best for outreach with our campaigns. We then created a campaign, and finally, we launched the campaigns and measured the results. To sum up, know your audience and give them content they'll engage with. Thank you for attending the second webinar in our summer series, Internet Marketing 101, which was presented by Active Web Group. Results, period. If you have any questions about the webinar, please feel free to reach out to us at info@activewebgroup.com or by calling us at 1-800-978-3417.